Merkel Media.
I'm exhausted, looking for everything in the shadows. Start looking at people like they don't matter. I'm waking up to the fact, more than a little bit shallow. I'm lost down this hole, but I don't wanna. I'm lost down this hole, 'cause I'm just trying to
What's good, everybody? This is Joel Thomas, and this is Free the Rabbits. And how are all the free range rabbits doing out there today? I got some great news for everyone that's been asking and blowing me up about the Free the Rabbits intro. As of today, it has been released as a single on all platforms. So if you like Spotify, if you like Apple Music, if you like Tidal, if you like Amazon Music, if you listen to your music on YouTube or any place else where music is streaming, Free the Rabbits is now available for you to play over and over again, so you don't have to come to the show and keep rewinding to the front of the show to listen to it. It has now been released as a single. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know you guys have been asking me a lot about it, and I'm really happy to finally provide that for you now. Also, if you hadn't already seen the video on Thursday, memberships are now available on YouTube. Now, this is more of a donation type membership. So if you don't have the money to do it, that's fine. You're still going to get the shows every week, just like everyone else. This is just for people that want to donate to the show. As far as the tier system works here on YouTube, go back to the video that I dropped on Thursday, and I'll explain in more depth what the different tier systems are and how you can donate money here on YouTube. Also, some people were asking how they could make a one-time donation to Free the Rabbits podcast, because it does take a lot of money to produce the show through Merkel Media. There's a lot of people involved to help get this show out, not just myself. So any kind of donation always helps us and helps the show grow even more. If you'd like to leave that one-time donation, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/freetherabbits, and you can give whatever you want there in increments of 5. So if you'd like to give money for a one-time donation, you can go there now. I've also got the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree in Ada, Ohio at the Ada War and Memorial Park. I'll be a speaker at the event along with Cryptids of the Corn, Jake Dressel, B. Mills, and John Hickenbottom. And we'll be talking a lot about cryptids. I'll be talking about some of the trips I've been on. But those tickets are actually sold out for the speaking part of the event. However, it is going to be a huge outdoor event from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tony Merkel from the Confessionals will also be there, and we'll have tables set up all throughout with tons of merchandise and tons of games, tons of food, and you'll get to meet all of us. So I hope to see you guys there, and the event itself is perfectly free. You can come out there, walk around, meet us, get some food, play some games, and have a great time at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree, which is on Saturday, October 5th. Now, Sunday, October 6th at 10 a.m., we have got special premiere tickets to Merkle Media's feature film, The Sasquatchologist, starring Joseph Granda and edited by Joe Stauffer. And there will be a Q&A afterwards, but this will be one of the early sneak peek premieres of this feature film coming out from Merkle Media, and it will be at Ada Theater in Ada, Ohio. And I will have a link in the description below where you can buy your tickets early and you can come see this at the Ada Theater. I hope to see you guys there. And even if you don't show up to the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree, you can still buy tickets to that and show up on Sunday to watch this special feature film, The Sasquatchologist. Also, thank you guys so much for blowing up the 5-star reviews on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, all the comments and shares and likes here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. If you haven't gone and do it, I would greatly appreciate you guys going and giving me a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other platform you listen to your podcast at. It helps grow the show, and you guys have done such a great job helping to grow the show already here in just 3 months. All right, guys, let's get to the show. What's going on, guys? We are back with another episode of Free the Rabbits. And just a precursor before we start this one, it will be aired on YouTube and Rumble, but I will say some of the subject matter is a little sensitive. So I know some people that listen to this, their children listen to it with them as well, and they may be small children. And I know you guys are there for some good biblical stuff, some Nephilim stuff, but we won't be touching on that today. We'll be talking about a controversial figure in the hip hop industry and really just entertainment as a whole. And I thought it was important to go there since he has been red hot in the news over the past year. And I've talked about him before, but I haven't gone in as much depth as I will today. And I want to talk a little bit about his past, but we'll start with his current situation, and then I'll be able to go back into his past and show you how there is a track record of all of these different infidelities and power plays that this particular character has been permeating throughout the entertainment industry. But I will say some of the stuff that we'll talk about today is going to be a little sensitive for young, small ears. So I would suggest that you not let them listen to it unless they are old enough to understand what some of this stuff might be. Just a heads up on that, because I know that people come here and let all ages listen to a lot of what I have to say. But with me talking about conspiracies, there tends to be a lot of times where I'm going to talk about things that won't necessarily be for the small ears. But I think this episode is going to be important because I think it shows how the entertainment industry has been ran for a long time. And yes, we will talk about what is true, what's provable. We'll talk about things that aren't provable, but maybe there are things that line up to make those things a little more plausible. And you know how I like to do it here on Free the Rabbits. I don't like to over-sensationalize, if at all possible, even though a lot of the topics that we end up talking about here just typically tend to be that way because a lot of it is far out there. But I do try to stay within the realm of what's possible, what's real. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about today with Diddy, P. Diddy, or Puff Daddy. You know, some people may remember him of some of the older names that he went by, but Sean Combs, who has ran Bad Boy since its inception. There are a lot of things that he's got his hands into. He is a music mogul. He is someone who is highly connected, is high up as presidents. So this guy has been moving and shaking since the late 80s, early 90s. Really, the early 90s is when he blew up. And we're going to talk about some of those things today. And I'm going to show you how that here are some timelines in the last year and what happened. And then we're going to talk about some things in the past that can show us that he's been doing this all along and show you where, hey, some of this stuff could possibly be fabricated, generated to pile on to what is already there with him. Now, I think that when it comes to him in general, a lot of this stuff is very plausible. And I'm not going to say that I don't believe that Diddy's involved with a lot of seedy, underhanded, nasty business. And I absolutely think that he is. So I don't want anyone saying that I'm trying to get him off scot-free here. But what I am trying to do is sift through the truth as opposed to the theories that are there about him. Now, these theories could have some very interesting information that could help line up those theories in the truth. But we can't sit here and say this is a verbatim truth when we don't know that for a fact. And that's something I try to stay in the pocket with here. I know I'd say in the past couple months since I started the podcast, I've had a handful, very small, select group of people reach out to me, not very happy that I don't commit to these theories, saying that I use the words like possibly, maybe, or the like. You will continue to hear me use those type of words on this show for a lot of the stuff that I talk about. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of this stuff is theorizing. It's not a verbatim fact. You can say, oh, I think this because I've read this or done this research, but none of us actually know. And you'll know this from episode 1 when I did the Cass Sunstein effect. As a matter of fact, the paper that Cass Sunstein and Adrian Vermeule wrote is the baseline for this entire podcast. And it's why that I look into these theories as objectively as possible. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because with Diddy, there are some stuff that lines up as an actual provable fact. A lot. Then there is a lot of supposition from eyewitnesses that say these things happened. But you could throw that on he said, she said type of behavior. And I will say this. I think that in my mind, or at least what I think, that the majority of things that have come out about Diddy over the past 20, 25 years probably have elements of truth to them. And even the crazier stuff, I think we can sit there and say, you know what, here are some things that this doesn't add up. I feel like this is more than likely happening or has happened when it comes to Diddy. But I will say, I think there's a movement within the industry to create this persona of Diddy as the hip hop Epstein. And I think he's going to be used as a sacrificial lamb. And I called this a few years ago when I talked about Diddy then, but I think he's going to be used as a sacrificial lamb to quelch the appetites of the people who have been calling for some of these heads within the entertainment and specifically the hip hop industry. It's been obvious for a long time that there has been some very nefarious things going on within the hip hop realm. And Diddy's name consistently comes up, along with several others, but his specifically, and I would dare say at the top of that list. So if you can serve this guy up on a platter to everyone and leave out the bulk of what he's actually done and with some of the people that he's actually done it with, it's kind of a win for these quote unquote powers that be, because what they'll do is they'll use him as a sacrificial lamb so everyone will be happy that they've taken this guy off the streets. Oh, the entertainment industry's okay now. I don't know. And I would say probably not, considering what the entertainment industry's been like for hundreds of years. We're not even talking about since the era of television, but even before that. And we could go all the way back to actors and actresses in Rome. And I believe that this has trickled down all the way to now. And I think Diddy's been a big part of it. But I also think that there was always this idea from the powers that be that Diddy would be served up at some point. Now, some people want to speculate that when he's served up, is he actually going to pay for it? Is it going to be more like a Weinstein situation? Is it going to be all the way like an Epstein situation where we know what happened to Epstein, but some people would argue that we really don't know what happened to Epstein? And I would probably be one of those people that would suggest that we do not know exactly what happened to Epstein. And most people that critically think would tell you that we don't know exactly what happened to Epstein. Now, are they feeding us this idea of Diddy being locked up long term? They're already saying he's on unaliving himself watch. So it just seems a little too convenient. Is it going to be in the same vein as what Jeffrey did or what happened to Jeffrey? You know, I don't know exactly, but I can say that he's being served up. And I would say he's being served up by the industry, by the powers that be. This isn't Diddy slipped up and finally all the stuff's coming out. Now, myself being a Christian and believing that God works behind the scenes to shed light on these types of things, absolutely. I think that Diddy is very much so in the line of fire when it comes to that line of thinking too. That doesn't mean that the powers that be aren't going to serve him up to save the bulk of themselves. I mean, we already know that there are several celebrities that have deleted X accounts, are deleting things left and right, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, but they're doing that in conjunction with what's happening to Diddy. So we'll see today as we explore this idea of who Diddy is, what he's done, and we're going to dig into his past and the people that he's worked with, people that left him, that were a part of his record label, and a lot of other mysteries surrounding him, because I do find it fascinating the charges that have been brought against him as of recent, but there's a lot left out that I believe that most people who have been digging into the things that he has been said to have done, a lot of that's left out, especially when it comes to what he's done to men, what he's done to small children. Those types of things aren't a part of what they're accusing him about. Now, they may have left some of that out. Maybe they're not showing their full hand. Maybe that's what the FBI is really doing. Maybe that's what the CIA is really doing in this particular instance. I don't know. This guy is a very, very connected individual. And it's said that he has a lot of people, politicians included, on video doing nefarious things. Again, sounds a lot like Jeffrey Epstein. So maybe they're leery about how they're going to do it with him because they think that he's got some sort of, kill switch that he can let loose. But I know they argued the same with Epstein. But, maybe Epstein was ushered out into some other form of living and wasn't actually dead when they found him. So I don't know. I'm just speculating, and some of this will be speculation. Everything we can't nail down here, but I will start with the stuff we can nail down, and I'm going to give you a timeline of when this stuff all started. And I say when it all started, but it's almost hilarious to me because there were so many people who had critical minds when it came to the hip hop industry, the music industry, entertainment as a whole, Hollywood, even sports, that knew a lot of this stuff was going on, that saw the signs. But then there were so many people that fought against it, even with Diddy. I saw so many people get angry as close as a couple years ago, where they would say, leave him alone. He's just a mogul. You're trying to take down a guy who's built this empire for him and his family. I saw it all the time in comments. And then now, look what's happened. But the signs were always there. And I would say as far back as the 90s, they were there. But back then, you didn't have social media and you didn't have ways to really pinpoint it. All you had was his associations with certain people and what was happening with those people, which we'll talk about today. But right now, I'm going to start with this timeline of Diddy, this current timeline of when suddenly everyone was awake to what good old Diddy was actually doing. And again, you'll notice in this timeline, there are some major pieces that aren't really talked about, that you'll only catch in conspiracy blogs, conspiracy shows about other things that he's been involved in, or at least speculated that he's involved in. And with the information that we have, we can at least have a pretty good idea that this is definitely in the high probability factor of things that he's done. But you'll notice as I'm going through this, it'll be pretty standard operating procedure, similar to a Weinstein, as far as what he's done with certain women in his position of power. And we'll get to that. So it really started in November 16th of 2023. Cassandra Ventura, also known as the singer Cassie, she filed a legal complaint alleging years of abuse, harassment during the relationship she entered in with Combs and remained in for years. She also alleged in the suit that Combs made a threat to blow up Kid Cudi's car. And if you don't know who Kid Cudi is, he is a rapper out of Cleveland. Later, the rapper's car actually did explode, and Cudi confirmed the version of events detailed in her lawsuit. Her case was filed under New York's Adult Survivors Act, and just one day after it was filed, the lawsuit was settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. So Cassandra Ventura, and I told you she was known as Cassie, is an American singer, dancer, actress, and model. She was born in New London, Connecticut. She began her musical career after meeting producer Ryan Leslie in late 2004 and signed to his record label, Next Selection Lifestyle, and then they joined together with Diddy, who signed her to a joint venture with his label Bad Boy Records. And then she released her debut single, Me and You, which was in the top 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. And she was pretty hot during that period of time, like the mid 2000s to like 2013. She had a lot of hot songs. Official Girl with Lil Wayne, Must Be Love with Diddy, Let's Get Crazy with Akon. Maybe some of you guys will know that. If you're not into hip hop, just bear with me, because this is a tale of how the industries ran. Because I think Diddy is a central figure that we can look at and say, this is probably how all of these industries are run, or at least have somebody very similar in all these positions. Now, from 2007 to 2018, Ventura was in a long-term relationship with Diddy. And then, like I said, on November 16th, 2023, she filed a lawsuit against Combs. Now, Combs' attorney, Ben Freeman, denied the allegations. However, a day after she filed the lawsuit, they actually settled out of court. So she filed the lawsuit, Combs settled, kind of makes Combs look like he's pretty guilty in that particular instance. Now, on November 23rd, 2023, this was a week later, under the wire before the cutoff date for the filing under the Adult Survivors Act, Combs was hit with 2 more lawsuits. Joy Dickerson Neal accused him of misconduct in the 1990s after the two went on a date when she was 19. Now, what she alleged happened is he tried to make some advances. She wasn't feeling it. He apparently drugged her, took her to 2 locations, filmed what happened in those locations, and I won't get into detail what those were. If you want to go read about it, you can, but I'm sure you can infer what happened. But he filmed it, and he held this over her head for a long time. Now, as you'll know about a lot of victim survivors, a lot of them won't go forward. As a matter of fact, 63% of victim survivors won't go forward. I know people personally who have been the subject of these heinous acts from other people. And I can say that I know that some of them did not go forward to the police. I want to say this, just a side note before we get back into Diddy. We should not judge those people for either going or not going. It's very easy when you're on the outside and you've never had anything happen to you, and for you to say, oh, they should do that because that person will end up doing it to more people. Easy to say. But if you have to go before a court of law and drum up all this old stuff, and what if nothing happens to the person? What if they have a good lawyer? No, that's the fear that people have. Now, imagine that times 1 million with somebody like Diddy, who's in so much power, who's tied in with so many officials, government officials. I'm sure you'd have a lot of fear in the 90s. It's a little different now with the way social media is and how easy it is to get information out about somebody. Even false information out about somebody can ruin them. It's a lot different now than it was back then. And I can say that looking at it in that perspective, I can see why Dickerson Neal didn't come forward right away. But she did use the Adult Survivors Act, very similar to Cassie, to get this information out. Now, obviously, I'm sure she saw what happened with Cassie, and she used that as a catalyst to help herself get this information out. Again, it's interesting, all the timing. Sometimes I wonder if there's another force behind the scenes that's moving things like dominoes on people, because it seems like when somebody goes down, they go down hard. Now, I'm not saying that somebody doesn't open the floodgates and then the flood comes and everybody just starts rolling. I think that's part of it for sure. But when we're looking at Diddy and how protected he's been for 25, 30 years, you have to start thinking that there were things in place that kept him protected that were removed. And I think that for sure that God's hand was at work here in exposing this. But I also think that in conjunction, it was time to serve him up, or at least things were coming down the pipe, and people that were close to the situation that didn't want to get burned too were like, it's time. It's time to put Diddy's head on a platter. He's been doing this long enough. We'll get a new person to fill that slot, and they will. And they'll find a better way to hide it. They'll find a better way to do it until it's time to serve that person up. It's part of what the sacrifice is. I think people don't understand that. As people get older, they get to a place where they're no longer needed. And maybe this is kind of a situation with Diddy where he's really no longer needed. So on December 6, 2023, Combs is accused of involvement where he allegedly drugged the accuser, who was 17 years old at the time. 2 other men were accused of being a part of the alleged assault, which the alleged victim says took place in a recording studio in 2003. The backlash against Combs after this accusation is palpable, and he steps down as chairman of Revolt TV. Several brands also cut ties business with him at the same time. Now, of course, Combs comes out, denies all the allegations, just like he's still doing now, and I'm going to fight for my name and the truth. And there were still people that I saw online that were buying into the fact that he was not guilty. I just think there's too much. I don't care if you think that some of this is him getting railroaded. It's not all of it. I can promise you that. There's just too much. So on February 26, 2024, and this is the Lil Rod lawsuit drops, and it accused Combs of sexual assault and forcing the producer to engage with prostitutes, ingest drugs, and engage in various uncouth activities. Now, if you don't know who Rodney Jones is, or Lil Rod, he's a musician and producer, and he was hired by Combs to work on what would become Combs's 2023 album, The Love Album, Off the Grid, Diddy's first studio record since 2006. And Jones has segued into hip-hop production from early gospel work, and he's from Chicago. He grew up playing in the church, piano, bass guitar, the full nine. And he's actually performed on 30 plus albums. He's credited on tracks by Jack Marlowe, Mary J. Blige, T-Pain, a host of artists, specifically hip hop. And he's credited with producing 9 tracks on that Diddy album that we just talked about. Now, during that 14 months when he was working on this album, he said, and he was 38 at the time, he himself was assaulted. He was forced by Combs to engage in sex acts made to solicit sex workers, drugged, humiliated, and repeatedly groped by Diddy and others. And now what Combs's lawyers are suggesting is the real motivation behind the lawsuit is, he says, that Diddy stiffed him on money from the actual album to the tune of $50,000. Now, I want to bring that up because I don't think that that's solely the motivation, in my opinion, because Diddy's known for doing this. In the 90s, he was cheating people out of money. He was cheating Biggie Smalls out of money, Craig Mack out of money, Mace out of money, Loon, Shine. Even though these guys were working for him and in a position where they made some money, it's come out over the years where he's cheated everyone that's worked for him, which makes you think, what kind of power does he have over these people to where he can just boldly steal money from you and you really do nothing about it? Now, I know some of the artists have said that a lot of it's in the paperwork, where you sign a contract and you didn't read the fine print, where you're shooting a music video, Diddy brings one of his cars over or several cars of his to let you use for a music video. And you're like, oh, it's cool. Diddy just let me borrow his cars for the music video. Then he charges you for using his cars for the music video. Oh, you rented those. He's a smart businessman. And if you're not reading the fine print, he's going to take money from you. But I believe that's in conjunction with all of these other nefarious sexual activities of his. And I'm going to say this real quick, and I don't necessarily think it's all about the pleasure or the excitement from it. And you'll see later on when I talk about something that Jaguar White has said about him and his position, but a lot of it is his position. He likes the power. He likes to be able to tell people what to do. So if I can make you do something that you wouldn't normally do to obtain what I'm dangling over you like a carrot, then I'm the one in control. He's getting off on the power. See, it's not so much about the excitement of the actual act. It's more about the excitement from the actual power. And you'll see that a lot with these guys. And that's why you'll see a lot of different stories with Diddy. It's not just stories with men. It's not just stories with women. It's stories with everything in between, because he doesn't care. It's about putting people under his thumb that they have to listen to whatever he says to obtain what he can give them. And I'm saying all that to say that's kind of how the industry's built, how it's always been built. Even back in the 1940s, all of that existed. Even further back, much further back. But even at TV's inception, these power plays were always being brokered. And I think people forget that. We see a lot of the modernization of how the industries ran, and we think that it's a new thing over just the past 20, 30 years. No. It just wasn't publicized like that because we didn't have access to be able to see things so rapidly on our phones back then. That's all there was. These people existed just like Diddy back then, just like Epstein back then, just like Weinstein back then. It's always existed. So on March 25th, 2024, the Combs case escalates with massive attention on his dealings after authorities raided his properties in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami as a part of a broad investigation into sex trafficking allegations. This all came as the Lil Rod lawsuit was raising eyebrows about the mogul's behavior, and it did no favors for Combs. And soon he was a daily subject of gossip and conspiracy theories across the web. Just like this show, we are theorizing about a lot of things that Diddy has done, but we're also going to nail down today some things that he's actually done as well. April 4th, 2024, a lawsuit implicated Christian Combs, King Combs, the rap mogul's son, in an assault that allegedly involved a staff member on a yacht that had been chartered by the rapper. In the suit, Combs is accused of facilitating the environment that allowed the assault to take place. So according to this lawsuit implication, his own son, King Combs, who's also a rapper, he facilitated this environment for his own kids to play around in, just like he's been playing around in. Now, if you want to know anything about Christian Combs, he's Diddy's third son, and with his ex-wife, Kim Porter. And Kim Porter's important. She was from Columbus, Georgia, and she began modeling as a teenager. She also appeared in films, TV series such as The Brothers, 2001, Wicked Wicked Games, The System Within, Single Ladies, and Mama, I Want to Sing in 2012. Now, from 1994 until 2007, Porter had an on and off relationship with Sean Combs. And through that relationship, they had Christian Combs and his twin daughters, Jesse, and Delilah Combs around that time. Now, the interesting thing about Porter, she died on November 15th, 2018 in Lakuka Lake, California of what they said lobar pneumonia after several days of flu-like symptoms. Now, the really interesting thing about her death was it was listed as deferred on her death certificate. They never actually came out and said what it was. And then later on came out in an autopsy and said it was because of lobar pneumonia. Now, I'll be sure who is her ex-husband from before, and they have a child together, Quincy Brown, who's also a very nefarious character in all of this dealing with Diddy. But I'll be sure just came out recently on the tails of what they said was an autobiography from Kim Porter. We don't actually know if this book was an autobiography from Kim Porter, but he came out on the tails of this quote unquote autobiography that hit Amazon and said that he believed that Diddy was the one that caused her actual death. And he's questioning that and wants people to dig back into it and find out if Diddy had anything to do with her death. Now, this book, Kim's Lost Words, A Journey from Justice from the Other Side, it was written by a man named Chris Todd under the pseudonym Jamal T. Millwood. And according to Todd, or Millwood, the alleged memoir wound up in his hands shortly after Cassie Ventura filed her detailed sex trafficking and sexual abuse lawsuit against Combs last November. So he's saying somebody covertly handed him this autobiography that apparently Kim Porter wrote in secret about all these nefarious things about Diddy, about Al B. Shore. And that's another reason that Al B. Shore came out and said that he wants this book pulled. Several people in her family are saying they want the book pulled. I'm not saying the book's real. What I am saying, though, is that a lot of people are up in arms about this book, and some of them have been involved in a lot of nefarious things. And interesting enough, the back page of the book that just came out, in her words, supposedly, it says, "I will have my say, my final words. Sean Combs will get exposed, even if I lose my life doing so." So she wrote this prior to her death, which was a mysterious death by all accounts. And this is mainstream documented that it was mysterious. And Al B. Shore's coming out saying that he thinks Diddy had something to do with it. And then you got these last words saying that Sean Combs will get exposed even if I lose my life doing so. So maybe, we don't know. We just know that Chris Todd wrote this book. Apparently, he received this autobiography right around the time, conveniently, that Cassie came forward with her lawsuit against Diddy. So a lot of moving parts here. Again, it's that snowball effect. The floodgates open, all the water is just pouring through now. Now everybody's jumping in. But you got people who are catching strays, like Al B. Sure, who's on the one hand saying that he thinks Diddy had something to do with Kim Porter's death. But on the other hand, he's saying that the book needs to be pulled. I had nothing to do with any of that. And side note, his son, Quincy Brown, who was Kim Porter's son, who was adopted by Diddy, was allegedly involved with a lot of nefarious things. As a matter of fact, he had a relationship with Will Smith, according to these rumors. He was also said to have been with Tupac, according to these rumors. I know that's super controversial for people that love Tupac, but just as of recently, in the past year, a lot of videos have been resurfacing of Tupac that seem a little suspect. I'm not going to lie to you. And he was an actor. A lot of these people in these positions are actors. We can say they lived this street life or whatever. And I'm not saying that Tupac didn't come from a version of poverty at all. What I am saying, though, it doesn't mean that someone's not manipulated. Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, he was an actor too. You know, that's what we have to look at with some of these people. It doesn't mean they're not talented, and it doesn't mean that they don't have a lasting effect on the hip hop culture or entertainment culture, whoever they might be. But it doesn't mean there's not a form of manipulation going behind the scenes. You know, one of the things that I've always preached is the idolization of celebrities, the idolization of music artists, the idolization of sports athletes. Look, we can look to these people and look at how they work to get where they're at, take that. But also know that individuals are individuals and they're human and they're flawed. We're all flawed. And people can go into things with the best of intentions and get manipulated, especially when it starts involving a ton of money. And you'll see people change. You know, we could say Tupac started out one way and then became this character of a gangster that really led the gangster rap revolution in the 90s after NWA, after Dre, after Snoop. You know, Pac and Biggie were those figureheads. And I'm not going to discount someone that thinks they could have been manipulated. Not at all. But back to Quincy Brown, he was said to have been with Tupac, Will Smith, and sadly, even Diddy, who was his stepfather, who facilitated these type of activities. So May 10th, 2024, Combs' legal team pushes back on claims against their client, this time alleging the lawsuit from the Detroit woman alleging Combs took advantage of her with two others in a studio in 2003 was filed too late. And the claims around Combs' alleged behavior are false and hideous. So you're going to see this. His team keeps saying it's despicable, false, hideous, but they keep piling up. Now, this was the one that really took everyone by storm. May 17th, 2024, Combs' reputation is dealt a massive blow after CNN obtained a video of the mogul wearing a robe and walking into a hotel hallway where he then brutally assaulted his former romantic partner, Cassie, who we already talked about, in 2016. The shocking video is blanketed across all of social media and leads Combs to issue a public apology. My behavior in that video is excusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. Whoop-de-doo. You know, I don't buy the apology, especially when people do this type of thing. And I'm all about people having forgiveness, and you know how I feel in this show, but I can see when somebody is just trying to protect themselves. And I didn't feel that this was very sincere, just my opinion. But the timing's pretty crazy. This video was shot in 2016 and it's just being released in 2024. Who had this video all this time? You got to ask these questions. Why was this just now released? Why was it given to CNN, of all places? Who's going to push it globally? You got to ask these questions. And it goes back to my theory that he is being served up. June 9th through 10th, Howard University revokes an honorary degree it handed to Combs, and Mayor Eric Adams of New York asked for the keys to the city back from Diddy. So he's losing everything at this point. All his little accolades. June 10th, 2024, hilariously enough, Suge Knight, who ran Death Row Records, who was at opposition in the 90s with Diddy, he dropped a theory from prison that the mogul is working with the FBI as an informant. This is why Knight claimed Combs had been able to act as he did with impunity. He said it shouldn't be a gray area when it comes to doing something right, doing something positive, or doing something for the community. Knight said on an episode of his Collect Call with Suge Knight podcast. That being said, naturally, Puffy has been an FBI informant forever, as they would say. That's why it's different when it comes to him. No different than it came to you either, Suge Knight. You just were a little more reckless than Diddy as far as what you did in public. I believe, in my mind, that you could have been just as connected to the FBI or the CIA back in the 90s, because you and Diddy seem to be two sides of the same coin. I mean, you guys seem to be pretty okay while everybody else is dropping like flies. So I thought that was pretty funny that Suge Knight would come out and say this after he's seeing this happen to Diddy. And obviously they're probably still rivals to this day, and they're just looking to take jabs at each other. Now, in August 26, 2024, Combs' attorneys issue a motion to dismiss Lil Rod's explosive case, saying that his accusations were exaggerated and some even fabricated. They accused Jones of aiming only to exploit his fame for media attention and potentially large settlement. Not saying that Lil Rod was not trying to get money that was owed to him. And part of me actually believes that he was owed money, only because I've seen the track record of Diddy and all the artists that have worked for him. There's only been one particular artist that is pretty much come out of the Diddy situation unscathed and with a lot of money. And we're going to talk about him today and how, interestingly enough, this particular artist has been doing his thing and making a lot of money, while all the rest of them have either left Diddy or died, which is pretty crazy to think about. So I don't take it out of the possibility that Lil Rod was owed money, but I'm not saying that doesn't discount what the other claims were that he was saying too. Now, this is what's even crazier. It's said during this time that Combs possesses compromising footage of every person that has attended what he calls the freak-off parties at all of his house parties. So these alleged days-long sex parties that Diddy was throwing, where there were politicians, celebrities, musicians, athletes, everything you can think of, because Diddy's been filmed or photographed with just about everybody. And that doesn't mean that everybody's been filmed or photographed with or a part of his parties either, unless they were pictures where they were at a party at his house, which there's a bunch of those running around right now too. But these particular events, he was pulling an Epstein. He was filming all of this stuff, and he did it on purpose. He wanted to have blackmail over these people because blackmail's power. And back to Suge Knight's point, it gives him a level of impunity. You know, what did he have on government officials that he was able to leverage when it came to the FBI or CIA? I just think that at some point, there is a way that these organizations can just take you down, no matter what kind of leverage you think you have. Or you want to go the super deep conspiracy route, like with the Epstein, it's a way to lock up someone or throw the book at someone and then them on the back end skate without anybody really knowing it. Maybe they just live a life of seclusion after that, but they're still living pretty okay. You know, it's hard to say. We don't know yet with this Diddy situation, how it's going to shake out in the long term. We just kind of know where it's at right now. Now, on September 15th, 2024, Combs returns to New York in anticipation of his arrest. He was spotted around Manhattan. He seemed like he was in a good mood. He's seen with his attorney. He's seen walking around with his son, Christian Combs, who, according to all of these accusations, was a part of all this stuff too. Then in September 16th of 2024, Combs is arrested in Manhattan, and an indictment unsealed the following day, accusing the fallen mogul of crimes relegated to alleged decades-long patterns of physical and sexual violence against women. Federal prosecutors charged him with sex trafficking and racketeering for directing a vast criminal enterprise through which he assaulted and trafficked women with the help of his various businesses from at least 2008. He pleaded not guilty and fought for a $60 million bond, but the judge decided he would be detained until his trial. So this was that part that kind of blew my mind, where it was just sexual violence against women. Are we following the same info when it comes to Diddy? You know, I keep it very in the pocket on this podcast. And at the same time, when it comes to this particular person, I just think, you know, in conjunction with what Lil Rod was talking about, who is a male, who has said that Diddy did things to him, forced him to do things. I just think that that's a very convenient thing that's being left out. Also, with some of these children that he seems to have been involved with, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. Now, around this time, this is when the conspiratorial world just started going absolutely crazy, right? To the max. I mean, there was videos coming out. We had all kind of different interviews with random people who said they know Diddy. There was all of these different things. And I can't even name them all on the show. It's so much. I mean, your best bet is just to get on X or YouTube or whatever app you like. Just type in Diddy, and I promise you're going to find a bunch of stuff. Now, in saying that, do I think all of it's true? No, I don't think all of it's true. I think it's very easy for us in the conspiratorial world to see these things and say, oh no, that's it. That's it for sure. He's doing all of it. He could be doing a ton of bad stuff. And I believe that he is absolutely one of the most despicable people when it comes to these type of things. I'm not disavowing that. But I just think it's the classic conspiratorial mind where we take everything as truth. Just anything we see within 5 seconds. You know, there were so many different people coming out, said they had videos of Diddy. There was that one with Meek Mill. And if you don't know who Meek Mill is, he is a rapper from Philly. And he was really big back in like the mid to early 2000s, pushing into 2012, 2013, around that time. He had some stuff, even later that was pretty good. He worked with Drake, worked with Rick Ross, and he was originally signed to T.I.'s Grand Hustle label. But anyway, he got real tight with Diddy, and it was very suspect, some of the stuff that was said between him and Diddy, and this is on tape. So it just seemed weird. He's calling Diddy daddy, Diddy's calling him daddy, and not in a, if you like professional wrestling, and not in a Dusty Rhodes type of way. Hard times, daddy. Not like that. This was a very flirty, sexual way that this word was being used between these guys. So people suspected Meek Mill for a long time doing stuff with Diddy. I think anyone that hung out with Diddy for a long time, at least people who had eyes on what they thought was going on in the industry behind the scenes, assumed that those people were Diddy's plaything. Now, recently, there was a video that came out as a audio of what was said to be Meek Mill and Diddy together. I'm not going to play it here on this show because it's way too graphic for that, but you can infer what was going on there. And this guy came out and said that he was a former bodyguard of Diddy and said that he was at a party. He said everyone was drugged that drank any of the champagne. He said he didn't drink, though. He liked to smoke. And he said when everybody passed out, he was walking through the mansion and he heard some stuff, walked up to the door. It was Meek Mill and Diddy, and he decided he was going to record it and use it as leverage against Diddy, which apparently he did. But now that Diddy's going down, of course he comes out. Now, some people think that it's AI generated. Maybe. I don't know about this particular video, if it's true or not. And sadly, the conspiratorial world would get angry if I suggested that it wasn't real. Oh, he's doing it. You need to commit. Listen, I can say that the guy's involved in a lot of things I don't know about, but I don't have to commit to everything that spews out of this entire mess that's going on when it comes to Diddy. Just like the freak-offs, just like these events that he hosted, we can suspect or try to calculate what was going on there. We don't know for sure. And these quote unquote eyewitnesses that are coming out, we don't know if they're just trying to get a paycheck themselves. You have to think that. So you can't buy everything, right? But again, there are certain things we can point to and we can say, here's some things that are provable that Diddy said on tape or Diddy did in his life. And we can say, okay, these make sense. Now, this will help build the narrative for all these other ideas that we have. So I'm going to start with what people call the bad boy curse. And I think it's important because this shows people that Diddy has worked with from the beginning and what happened to a lot of those people. It's super strange. And the people that didn't die, like Biggie Smalls, but that left him, that didn't have anything bad happen to him as far as physically, they all found their way to religion. It's fascinating. And when you look at it, all of these different musicians found their way to some sort of religion after they left Diddy. Why? You have to ask the question. So it starts with Craig Mack, and he was the first artist signed to Bad Boy Records. And some people that remember old school music will remember Flavor in Your Ear, his 1994 single, and it went on to become a first hit record for the label, and it helped lay the foundation for what Bad Boy was going to come to be. And when it comes to Craig Mack, some people suggest that his career was kind of cursed from the beginning. So right around the time he drops Flavor in Your Ear, Diddy discovers Notorious B.I.G., Biggie puts out Ready to Die. It's been out for 6 months. It's not really doing anything, but he wants to push B.I.G. Now, Craig Mack is hot because of Flavor in Your Ear. But Diddy sidewindingly makes Craig Mack do a remix of Flavor in Your Ear and puts Biggie, Busta Rhymes, Rampage, and LL Cool J on it, and that puts Biggie on the map. And then everybody goes and finds Ready to Die, and it literally blows up. And not only that, Diddy used to make fun of the way Craig Mack looked, and he was always the butt of ugly jokes. And he basically started shunning Mac. He wanted Mac to do more radio-friendly rap. Mac was more of a underground street rapper. And so what ends up happening with Mac is he ends up basically basement dwelling on Bad Boy Records, and he splits from the label in 1997. Now, you may wonder, okay, what does this have to do with all this nefarious stuff that Diddy's been accused of over the years? How's Craig Mack possibly involved? Well, Craig Mack goes and finds Occult to be a part of. He goes to South Carolina and joins the Overcomer Ministry, and it's a secluded, quote unquote, Christian community, and it's a cult. And in 2012, and interestingly enough, and Craig Mack wasn't a part of this stuff, but brother RG Stair was, this leader of Overcomer Ministry. He was actually arrested on several charges for touching young girls, and it's on video. You can literally type in brother RG Stair on YouTube, and you can see this craziness. And he is basically using the Bible to tell people in the church to offer up their women and children to him. Now, Craig Mack ends up being a part of this church. You got a question. What was Craig Mack involved with here? Was he just an innocent bystander in all this? Or was his time with Diddy and all the crazy stuff that happened there leads him to go find God, but then he ends up finding this crazy cult that he becomes a part of? It's interesting. I don't have the definitive answer on Craig Mack. He ends up dying of heart failure in South Carolina in 2018. So we really don't know all the things that Craig Mack saw, Craig Mack was a part of when he's with Diddy. But we do know that he was part of a cult whose leader was arrested for touching young girls. Our next big name, Mace. This is a wild one, right? When I listened to hip hop in the late 90s, Mace was the premier guy coming out of Bad Boy. I mean, they pushed him hard. I mean, he was right next to Diddy. His album, Harlem World, was nuts. I remember everybody played that album. It actually went quadruple platinum, which is insane for the mid to late 90s during that time. But you have to ask, what was Mace involved with? What was Mace doing that would drive him to abruptly leave Bad Boy, find God, and become a preacher? He literally goes and becomes a preacher. Now, he's part of a podcast now with Cameron called It Is What It Is, and some people may have seen it. So, he's still around. And he has said that a lot of why he left Diddy was because Diddy owed him money, but that was also part of when he came back to Bad Boy after he did a long stint in the church and preaching. He actually came back to Bad Boy for a little bit, dropped another album, and he said that Diddy owes him money from not only the first run, but the second run. But I think there's more to it than that. And I think we can point to some of what Mace was actually talking about in some of his songs that would make us think that he was also involved with some of the things that Diddy was. One of the songs I remember from that album was I Need to Be, featuring Monifa. And I remember there was a skit at the beginning, and I remember he's having a conversation with another guy, and it's about a girl. And he says, remember that girl you said was 19? And then Mace says, yeah, I remember that shorty. She was not 19. Word, yeah, she is 19. And then his friend says, I followed her to school. That's how I know. I followed her to school. And then Mace is like, she showed me some ID. And then his friend's like, dudes go to jail for that. So that's what kicks off the song. And it gets pretty explicit after that. He says the next time he sees her, this is after the skit, so tomorrow I use that pressure to undress her. The more that I caress her, the more I feel like a molester. So I wait for the day, deserve it. But every time I go to touch her, she say I heard it. I can't even talk sex, and then she say I'm perverted, and then she say, Mace, why we can't wait? What? I ain't worth it? So he goes on throughout this song, basically talking about an underage girl that he's trying to have relations with. And this was pushed during the Diddy era of the mid to late 90s. And then he abruptly leaves. And again, back to, I think anyone has a path to redemption. You know, we could argue that Mace wanted to get out. He saw a lot of craziness that was going on. He may have been involved in a lot of craziness. People speculate that Mace had something on Puffy at the time because Puffy does not let people out of their contract so easily. He had Mace under contract for a long time and he just let him walk. So the thought pattern is that Mace had something on Puffy, and Puffy, who wasn't Diddy at the time, let him walk. But interestingly enough, even after all of him going to God and becoming a preacher, after 5 years, he comes back and he does a comeback album, Welcome Back, and he aligns himself with 50 Cent's G Unit around the time. And he kind of goes on a weird foray of songs. He ends up doing a diss track against Cameron, which is funny because they do a podcast together now. But he really came out and was like, I'm with God and I'm, going to speak positivity. And then he kind of went into this Murder Mace route, which he was a moniker that he used to use in the mid to late 90s, which was questionable. And then he found his way back to the church again. So I don't know. When it comes to Mace, I don't know if he was ever actually repentant, if he actually tried to do what's right, if he is now. The verdict's out. I don't know the guy. I can say there's some questionable things. I can at least say in the 90s that there was some highly questionable things. And he would be considered part of one of the guys that was a part of the curse, in a sense, because he left while all the money was flowing in. He left at the peak. So something happened. Something was going on behind the scenes that he just couldn't be a part of anymore. And I think that we have to look at some of these guys and the thing that happened to them afterwards as signifiers that point to this character of Diddy, his personality, what he was involved with. I think we can look to these incidences and say, something's not right here. He signed Shine, who was from Belize, and he sounded a lot like Biggie. Most people thought he did, and I think people were okay with it because people missed the sound of Biggie so much. They were just willing to take on Shine. And he signed to Bad Boy in 1998. And I mean, he gave him millions of dollars, 3 cars of his choice, and 2 homes just for signing with Bad Boy. Now, gotta ask, what was the payment for all of that to sign with Bad Boy? Well, interestingly enough, one of his close friends died in an accident. It was a car accident after Shine and his childhood friend were leaving a nightclub in Manhattan. The Mercedes-Benz crashed and it fatally injured his best friend. And when it was brought up, Shine just laughed about it. And he didn't even really care at the funeral. People were wondering why he was so indifferent. Now, not too long after that, right after the release of his first album, Shine, Diddy and Jennifer Lopez, who was dating at the time, and Shine were involved in a shooting incident at a Manhattan club. It was said that Diddy did the shooting. Diddy was one involved, but they pinned everything on Shine. And he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Diddy was acquitted. And while Shine was incarcerated, he began studying Judaism with rabbis and legally changed his name to Moses. In 2009, Shine was released from jail. He got deported to Belize, and he formally converted to Orthodox Judaism in Jerusalem in 2012. And as of 2020, he was elected to the Belize House of Representatives. So this dude went full on into religion because of Diddy. He gets locked up for 10 years. He converts, and now he's into politics, or was as of 2020. So just another of the people that were musicians under Diddy who, for some odd reason, go straight to religion after Diddy. Like, things are so bad, but whatever they were involved with, whatever they saw, that they had to go to some form of religion to try to rectify what they've done or what they've seen. Loon would be another one. He came out with hits in 2002, I Need a Girl and I Need a Girl Part 2. Some of you guys that remember old school hip hop might remember that. He was also part of Mace's founded rap group Harlem World, which signed to So So Def with Jermaine Dupri. He bounces out from Bad Boy and converts to Islam. He changes his name to Amir Muhaddith after traveling to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and he ended his music career and relocated to Egypt. Like, how bad are things with Diddy that you're like, I'm changing my name, I'm joining a new religion, and I'm moving out of the country. Just another person in the long list of people who have worked with Diddy, who side themselves up with a religion to wash away whatever sins they've seen, whatever sins they've been a part of. Now, I was talking to you about a particular person who seems to have come out of this unscathed, somebody who was elevated with Diddy, and that would be Colson Baker. And people would better know him as Machine Gun Kelly from Cleveland, rapper, singer, actor. I know some of you might know who he is. He was involved with a pretty high profile beef a few years back with Marshall Mathers or Eminem. And he's pretty much come out of this whole thing unscathed with Bad Boy. Now, the thought pattern is for people that dig into conspiracies, who look at different signs, look at different things, that Machine Gun Kelly pretty much sold everything to Diddy and whatever entities that he could. You know, Eminem even called him a Satanist on one of his tracks, and Machine Gun Kelly has also said similar things as well. Now, another sign of MGK selling himself would be who he's with now, Megan Fox. And I know every ounce of conspiracy that goes on with that. And I'm just going to point to some of the things we do know. So one of the things that she and Machine Gun Kelly would do during occult rituals is drink each other's blood. And she said, so I guess to drink each other's blood might mislead people, or people are imagining us with goblets and we're like Game of Thrones drinking each other's blood. It's just a few drops. But yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes only. Now, funny enough, Fox was raised in a Pentecostal home, and she's spoken before on faith and spirituality. She claims to still attend church from time to time. So I'd like to know what church she goes to that is okay with her doing rituals and drinking blood. She says, I've seen magical, crazy things happen. I've seen people be healed. Even now in the church I go to during praise and worship, I could feel that I was maybe getting ready to speak in tongues. And I had to shut it off because I don't know what the church would do if I started screaming out in tongues in the back. She also shared she's into meditating, astrology, metaphysical practices, and full moon rituals. I read tarot cards, I'm into astrology, and I'm doing all these metaphysical practices and meditations. And I do rituals on a new moons and full moons and all these things. And she said it's very controlled, and she tells MGK, let's shed a few drops of blood and each drink it. So Machine Gun Kelly, who is the prodigy of Diddy, and I'm going to say prodigy, people might not like that, but he is, in my opinion, because he has lasted the sands of time when it comes to the Diddy effect. Like, he's doing all right as far as being alive, still making money, and still being on top when it comes to moving and shaking in the industry. Now, I know I did an episode a few episodes back about EGI, and I'm going to play this clip because I'd be remiss if I didn't play this clip and we're talking about Megan Fox, because I know what people say about her. So I'm going to play the clip and then I'll tell you what I think about it.
From a hot man to one of the hottest women in the business right now, Megan Fox with me now. Why do you shake your head?
Because I'm pretty sure I'm a doppelganger for Alan Alda.
Oh, God, out of here.
I'm a I'm a man.
You do not look in the mirror and not think you're beautiful. Don't even.
No, I'm so painfully insecure. Like, I'm on the verge of vomiting right now. I'm so horrified that I'm here and embarrassed and scared.
Is this your first time here?
Yeah, it's my first time.
What is your diet and exercise regimen? Because I have to ask you because your body is smoking.
Well, I do have a 22-inch waist. I will say that. But I basically starved myself for a month. I'm kidding. I did a lot of Pilates.
You do?
An immense amount of Pilates.
I love it. You're an honest woman. Thank you so much, Megan, for stopping by.
So I wanted to play that because I know that when I did the EGI episode, again, some people reached out and were questioning me doing that episode in conjunction with other episodes I've done, saying that my goal on this podcast is to debunk all these conspiracy theories. It's actually not. I'm just trying to put a level-headed mind to these conspiracy theories. I'm not throwing the baby out with the water at all. So I wanted to play this clip for the people who look into these things and say, it's weird. Is it revelation of the method? I don't know. She could just be playing a game. I think that a lot of these celebrities will say and do things just a mess with conspiracy theorists or just mess with people who were questioning things like EGI or whatever else. I think it's weird though. And if you want to go down that road with Megan Fox, I wouldn't be against you. And I will be the first one to point out if something looks weird. So I wanted to put that in there as a caveat to the people who look for the really off the wall stuff and say that I'm with you. I'm always looking for the off the wall stuff too, but I try to bring a clear-headed mind to these things because I don't think it's all. But here's an example where I can say it looks weird. It definitely looks weird. Now, another artist that came out, and this is when these narratives of Diddy and the sordidness that he had with men, and we're going to even talk about some of the, sadly, boys that could be a possibility of this. Exhibit came out with a story, and if you remember who Exhibit is, he used to run with Aftermath. Dr. Dre produced a lot of stuff for him. He did a lot of stuff with Marshall Mathers. He's West Coast all day. And he hung out with a woman called Corinne Steffens. And if you know anything about Corinne Steffens, she hung out with all of the top artists. And part of the story is that Exhibit and her were hanging out, and Puffy actually called him up and told him not to hang out with her and said that, yo, you know about the girl you with? And he said that she's the devil, man. And he said, what do you mean she's the devil? And then he went on to an explicit tirade about what she would do and then videotape it without him knowing it. So Exhibit tells Corinne Steffens about what Diddy says. She just laughs it off. And she's a mover and shaker in this industry with all these guys, so I'm sure she's heard worse. And Diddy invites X and Corinne Steffens to cap off the night by heading to a club with him. So they're all hanging out. So this is when it gets weird. So Diddy goes to the club. They walk the backs in the VIP lounge, and he's like, nobody's there. And he's like, the club's jumping. And he's sitting there, and Diddy's off somewhere doing business. And he's like, Corinne and him come down, get a drink. And he's sitting there. He notices two dudes kissing. He's like, what's going on? And she points in another direction. And then another dude over there is naked dancing. And he realizes, oh, I'm in a gay club. And he's like, man, I'm getting out of here. And she's like, me too. So they get up out of there. So Diddy basically lured them to a gay club, which, look, I don't think people would have an issue so much if Diddy came out and said he was homosexual. You know, I think that the fact that he uses it as a power play to manipulate people, I think that's what most people in the mainstream have a problem with. But it gets crazier. And this is where it starts getting down a very dark road. You know, we could say, hey, that's a grown man doing grown man things, whatever. But this is when it starts getting a little crazy. So Usher, who at a very young age, while he was trying to break into the industry with L.A. Reid, was told to connect with Diddy, that Diddy would help him get to where he needed to get to. Now, one thing I want to say about some of these artists, especially these artists that come in as kids, it's really tough for me not to have empathy for them. Now, I know we can look at actions they do as an adult and be disgusted. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, but we need to have some sort of level of empathy for these children who are absolutely done wrong, who were innocent when they went into the industry. I love it when people love to point fingers like they sold their soul. Look at those demons. Do you know what happened to them that brought them to this place? What would you have done if you were a child and you were passed around in the industry? I love it when people just get so amped up at what some of these adults do without even looking at what brought them there. And I hope, especially if you're a Christian, you got some sort of empathy. I'm not saying to disregard the actions of any adult, what they might do that's wrong. But when we're looking at people like Usher, Justin Bieber, Leonardo DiCaprio, just to name a small handful of people that we suspect because of stories that we've heard that could have been manipulated as children, we've got to have way, way more empathy in our hearts than what we do. So Usher goes on Howard Stern in 2014 to talk about L.A. Reid sending him to Diddy because he was going to drop him from his LaFace Records because he felt like that Usher couldn't get it together as a young kid. So instead of getting a vocal coach, he sends him to Diddy's Flavor Camp to toughen him up. Puffy's Flavor Camp. Now I'm going to play this clip. This is Usher talking to Howard Stern about it, and then we'll talk about it.
I moved to New York City, and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp.
Yeah,
Flavor
that's
Camp.
what it was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
In the 90s, do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Right.
And I saw it. And it was but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place. And I didn't necessarily understand it.
Biggie Smalls was there.
Biggie Smalls was there. Lil' Kim, Craig Mack.
All these people are hanging around.
Yeah, man. Faith Evans,
And your parents
Jodeci,
were
Mary J.
okay?
Blige. They didn't know nothing about this.
Oh.
I was having a good time. You know what I mean?
Does he have you doing any chores? Are you doing dishes at all? I mean, to keep you humble somewhat? Or are you just like, can you stay up till 4 a.m. with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
And do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had like per diem.
Yeah.
I had like,
What
like
a
a living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
See?
I mean, Usher's telling you right there that he wouldn't even let his own children go to something like that. So clearly, he's leaving a lot out. He won't tell you what really happened. I love it when Howard Stern's trying to point towards women and he keeps diverting from that subject. Like, no, that ain't what was going on. Yeah, they were toughening him up all right in a different type of way. They were breaking him. And we can take this to the idea of MK Ultra. We can take this to the idea of monarch programming. And you'll see this a lot with these young stars in any type of entertainment industry. Now, I've got another clip that's even wilder where Diddy is at a party with Kevin Hart and Usher shows up and he starts talking about Usher at 10 years old. And I'm just going to play the clip and then I'll tell you what I think.
We want to thank you. Come here. Don't sit on the bed at night. No homo. No, just don't get close to the bed. Don't get close. But it's just like, yo, we want to thank you for hosting the thing, man. It's been a pleasure. You didn't have to do it, and you did it.
No. I definitely didn't have to do it. I definitely didn't have to. First and foremost, I'm not getting in the bed. Shout out to him and what he did. I'm just gonna, if we can, let's just put the camera a little this way, just so we're not. I don't want my shot to even, I don't want it to come close to the bed, at all. Usher look like he fresh off plane. Fresh
off the garden stage. That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, pause, but like, check this out. I mean, back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented. You know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
what the did Puff just say? Nobody's going to acknowledge this but me. Puff just said we used to wrestle over the Frosted Flakes. And we're streaming live. That was stupid. Listen, that was stupid.
I mean, can you see how uncomfortable Usher was there? I mean, even Kevin Hart is in the know, and he's trying to divert Diddy away from talking about this. Even he was like, I'm not getting on that bed. They all know behind the scenes, if there's something going on, they operate in a different world. And I don't think that every celebrity or every singer or athlete is involved with this stuff. I really don't. I think that would be ludicrous to think. And I just I get so amped up at the conspiracy theorists that think that every single person is involved, every single person sold their soul. It gets exhausting. It gets exhausting. You know, and I talked about that on the EGI episode, how exhausting it gets when people are saying that all these people are inverted or whatever. It's exhausting. To think like that has to be exhausting. There's no level of discernment involved at all. But in this case, there seems to be some signifiers here that point to something happening to Usher with Diddy as a young child. You know, and it wasn't out of the realm of possibility about Usher liking men and women. I mean, his ex-wife Chili talked about that in an interview herself after the fact. So sadly, I think that as a boy, Usher was not done right. And what happened out of that is very sad. And I think that there are a lot of people in the industry who start out as children who, if they stay in the industry as adults, become the predators that used to prey on them as children, or just very broken people and really can't process things like a normal person would growing up. And I brought up Jaguar Wright, R&B singer, and she has come out with tons and tons of nuggets about the industry over the years. I don't buy all of it. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of the stuff she says is completely outlandish. I just think it's just not provable. But I do think some things make sense. She did talk about a story about a lawyer, an entertainment lawyer that she knew around 2003 that left Bad Boy after talking to Diddy. And she was trying to work out a deal with Diddy and New Jack City actor Christopher Williams about signing a demo deal. She left. She forgot something, went back to the office where Diddy and Christopher Williams were at, and things were happening. Between the two, she got up and left. She said Diddy approached her the next day and was pretty angry and wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to say anything and really put the heat on her. So another story of Diddy and his escapades from the past from people who say they're in the know. Now, this next one was really sad. I do think that probably there were some things done here. There's enough signifiers, and I don't think it was just Diddy. But Justin Bieber, really crazy stuff. I want to play a couple clips of Justin Bieber and his interactions with Diddy over the years. And I want to preface it with this. I remember these coming out a long time ago and people acting like there was nothing going on. And now that all this stuff with Diddy's coming out, people are now going back and looking at it and saying, oh, well, I guess there was. It's sad that as a large conglomerate of people that we can't see some of this stuff. And I think that maybe if we could help some of the children that are going through this. I would hope that we would try to help. So I'm going to play his first clip. This is when Bieber first comes on the scene and he is staying with Diddy for 48 hours.
Yeah, so as soon as you turn 16, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to let you rock this every time you come to LA. Yeah, this going to be yours. So every time you come to LA, it's a little dusty, but you know, come get the front shot of this.
Man.
Head that out. Minute.
Woo. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna be driving this next year.
Yeah, when you get 16, you come down there. You gotta, you know, wear your seat.
I mean, I'm 15. You could ride in the passenger seat. I got my permit. Not yet.
No.
All right, 16.
You're not ready.
16.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down, Jess.
Okay.
Let's slow down. Okay.
One step at a time.
But yeah, the keys is yours when you know, when you get 16. You good to go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when you get 18, you get the house. You get the mansion.
Okay. I get the mansion.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we off to now?
Where would you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Where are we going?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full crazy.
I'm going crazy.
Crazy.
I'm taking this out tonight.
What you want to do? What you want to do over the next 48 hours?
48 hours. Let's go. Let's just go get some girls. Let's go hang with some girls.
A man after my heart. That's what I'm talking about, kid.
And yeah, you can see right there that Bieber has no idea exactly what's going on, but you can tell that Diddy, with his mannerisms and what he's saying, is setting the tone. This is very akin to this flavor camp that he had Usher and countless others come to. I'm also going to play this other clip. This is kind of in the aftermath. This is after Justin Bieber has already established himself as a star. And this is another interaction he's had with Diddy.
What's up, man? You good?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, young brother, everything's good?
Everything's
Selling
great.
out arenas and everything?
Yeah.
Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you never really got my number, so.
Right. Okay.
My number?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you my number.
Yeah.
It's 555.
Yes. Okay.
5555.
Okay. 55. You heard that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm here to because you've been a big supporter of mine, all jokes aside.
And you can tell right there, Bieber is super nervous. He doesn't really know how to act. And he's not excited in the slightest of giving Diddy his number again. And it's really sad. And I think those two back to back kind of give you a picture. We also know that in 2020, if you'll remember, Justin Bieber came out with a song called Yummy. And if you watch the depictions in that music video, he is talking about the industry and what happens to children in the industry. And I remember when it came out, people were like, whoa, like the words are not matching up with what we're seeing in this music video. And you realize that this song isn't about what you think it's about. Interestingly enough, there was a time that Justin Bieber found Jesus and he started hanging out with a pastor of Hillsong NYC, Carl Lentz, and it was the Australian megachurch's first branch in the United States. And if you know anything about Carl Lentz, he's connected to a lot of celebrities, A-list followers, Kevin Durant, Selena Gomez, Chris Pratt. I know some people really like Hillsong, or any of the Hillsongs for that matter. And I will say this, I find it interesting that if you do just a little bit of research, and I do say this about churches too, because not all churches are great. And if you track some of these mega churches and who started them and some of the things they've been involved in, it's very interesting. And the original Hillsong Church was actually started by Frank Houston. He founded Sydney Christian Life Center, and it would come under the leadership of his son, Brian Houston, and it merged into Hillsong Church. And this is in Australia. The sad thing about Frank Houston is he was hit with multiple allegations of child sexual abuse. And a bunch of these revelations came out, and they're already public information. It was rampant abuse of boys throughout the 70s and 80s. And they were sending out payments to the victims and their families, still allowing him to preach. So this was the basis of these Hillsong churches being started, was on the backs of children. And to see that Justin Bieber connected himself to a person who was connected to one of these Hillsong churches makes me wonder, was he actually getting any help? Or was this just another layer to that facade? Leonardo DiCaprio would also be another one when he was younger. And I'm going to play this clip here with them asking Diddy who would be the number one person to come to his party.
And I'm sure that's probably not public information yet, but who's the person that's number one on that invitation list?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
And I can get on that list,
yes,
right?
Without a doubt, you are invited.
That is so generous of you. Cheers to that.
So that's a signifier, right? It's not a smoking gun. And I'll say that with any of these signifiers, but especially this one. But I'm going to show you a couple pictures here of young Leonardo with Diddy and some of his friends at one of Diddy's parties. These are some of these pictures that are resurfacing now. It looks weird. And the fact that you've got this young boy, even if he's technically an adult, he's still young. I don't know exactly how old he was in those pictures, but we don't know how long that somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio has been passed around. And there are other videos with him and other people back when he's even younger that were questionable. And I would say even with Justin Bieber, I mean, you could just type in YouTube and you'll see a lot of questionable activities from adults in the industry with these children. It's sad. And that's one of those things that really bothers me. And what really bothers me about these allegations with Diddy, or lack of allegations with Diddy, this is the part that we're not seeing. We're just seeing a certain level of allegations level at Diddy, but we haven't seen any of this stuff. And we know that it's floating around. We know that it exists. Now, the last layer of Diddy that I want to talk about is the occult side of it. You know, there's not a ton of over occult imagery with Diddy, right? That's one of those things. You see a lot of these other artists where you can point to these signs and symbols, but you got to dig a little bit with Diddy. But it's there. There's definitely some defining signifiers that tie Diddy to some of these activities. Lil' Kim actually suggested in an interview where she discussed the dark side of the music industry, she suggested Diddy may have used satanic rituals to boost Bad Boy Records' success and hinted at the possibility of his involvement in the death of other celebrities. And you know that she was super close to Biggie Smalls, so obviously she would go that route with Diddy. But it's not to say that there's not a possibility of that. Now, I think one of the big signifiers was what was called the City College Stampede. It was a crowd crush event on December 28th, 1991 in the City College of New York Gymnasium during a charity basketball game headlined by hip-hop celebrities Puff Daddy and Heavy D. Nearly 5,000 people tried to pack into the gymnasium, which could only fit 2,700 people. Outside people broke through at least one glass door leading to the gymnasium lobby. The crowd rushed the lobby and down a short staircase that led to the gymnasium. The doors at the bottom of the stairs opened inward into the lobby, not outward into the gymnasium. The doors were left closed for up to 15 minutes as the crush worsened. 9 people were crushed to death at the bottom of the staircase, while 29 others were injured. So this was one of the jump offs for Diddy, right? This was around the time when he really started making moves as a mogul. And some people point to this incident as an occult ritual that was a sacrifice that he used to elevate himself. Now, I don't know if that's the truth, but we can point to a few things. The ritual occurred December 28th, 1991, 54 days after Puff Daddy's birthday, or on his 55th day of his age. And this does kind of remind me of the Travis Scott concert, where 9 were also reported dead, sold out on May 5th, or 5/5. So very similar. If we go to Hebrew gematria, 55 equals Satan, and Diddy was 22 at the time, and in gematria, 22 equals satanic. And if we go to 55, the 55th prime equals ritual sacrifice. And that's if you get into gematria and what that could mean. Now, I'm not saying everything is gematria, but when you look at certain numbers and what they align with symbolically, especially when you look at massacres or mass shootings or occult sacrifices, it makes sense. And it's very interesting in this incident that these numbers align with a ritual sacrifice. And was this a moment in Diddy's life where he crossed that line and then now he moved into the elevation of what he was to become? In Diddy's album Forever in 1999, he did a song called Angels with Dirty Faces. He actually said, "Heaven and hell is only what you believe in. Baby, the industry's hell worth it. Confessions get us blessings from the Lord. We sin a lot. Wonder if he'll let me in. I'm not constantly trying to find a reason why." So he says that the industry's hell worth it. It's worth it. The hell is worth it. And again, there's not a lot of overt occult imagery with Diddy. And I do think that there are some people in the industry that keep things a little more under wraps, that aren't as visual with what they do. And I think he's done a lot of nasty things that we don't even know about. But I do want us to have a level of discernment with what we see online and not buy into everything that's floating around and say that everything for sure is that. But it doesn't mean that we can't sit there and look to these signifiers and say, man, this guy probably did a lot more than we know about. But I thought it was important to do an episode like this because this is something we can look to as the prototype of probably a lot of different people throughout different industries. I would say not even just entertainment, but business industries. These type of things happen. These type of things go on. People are used, abused. And on the one hand, I'm glad he's getting what he should get, at least on the surface. But then I wonder how much of it he's not getting. And we can just hope and pray that there's justice for people that are done wrong. And we should all pray for that. So now I'm going to do like I always do at the end of the show. We're going to read some 5-star reviews. We're going to start with Apple. Groves, Texas Outlaw, GTO George. Joel Thomas is an interesting guy that seems really cool and a little cray-cray, who has an amazing perspective that I find fascinating and that I align with for the most part. I see why Tony Merkel befriended Joel. Oh yeah, and his music is off the chain. Much love, brother. Appreciate that, GTO George. I am a little cray-cray. That is a fact. We've got Russ Bus 1. Fantastic. The style and subject matter of this show is awesome. Mind-blowing. Love it. Appreciate that, Russ Bus. Really do. We've got Nickname Rondo, episode 14. This episode is my favorite so far. I cannot get enough of this show. Keep them coming. Appreciate that, Nickname Rondo. And episode 14 is the redemption of Judas. For anyone that wants to go check that out, it was an absolute mind-blowing episode I did with Vicky Joy Anderson about the possible redemption of Judas Iscariot and how he's not in hell burning forever. It's a very interesting concept. I liked it a lot. Hope you guys go check it out. All right, we're going to read some from Spotify now. We got Abros McAfee. Awesome episode. Love the podcast. It's right up there with the Confessionals and Sasquatch Chronicles. I have weird dreams like that make no sense. And you are definitely talking about the episode that I did with Vicky Joy Anderson, where we spent the first 30 minutes talking about the dream world and astral projection. And it's interesting to think about what you're actually doing when you're in a dream state. We've got No Way. Much love, Mr. Joel Thomas. Big ups to you and all of what you're doing from North Platte, Nebraska, USA. Let's go. Thank you so much. No Way. All right, we got Reverend Zulu. Very interesting episode. I love hearing from Vicky Joy. I love hearing from Vicky Joy too. She is absolutely fantastic, and I'm so glad she joined me on this episode. All right, we're going to go to YouTube now. We've got Brother Heck 2403. This is my new favorite podcast. So much drama in this community lately with other creators. I'm glad I can watch you and Tony Merkel and never hear drama and just get some thought-provoking conversations. Keep it up. Brother Heck, I really appreciate that. And that is something that my mentor, Tony Merkel, told me a long time ago. He said, don't get involved in stupid, petty drama within the podcasting community. He said, people aren't here to hear that. They are here to hear you or whoever is on the show with you talk about said subject and not engage with the stupidity that other people want to get involved with. And I feel like that's how we should live in every facet of our lives, not just podcasting, but everything else. And that's something that I've really looked to live my life by. And I hope that with the positive message that I bring on this podcast, that we're all trying to find a way that we can connect with each other. And even if we think differently about stuff, we can still be friends, right? We've got D-Bird Media. All I got to say is amen, sister, and amen, brother. This is a subject that should not be avoided in the modern church, but sadly it is. And there are a lot of subjects that I talk about on the show that are avoided in the modern church. And I don't think they should be, especially when it comes to love and forgiveness, because the church loves to roast everyone in hell that they possibly can, not even looking at the log in their own eye. We've got Miriam 801. This show was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it and I learned so much. Keep it going, Joel. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Miriam. I really appreciate you writing that comment. Like I say all the time, if you can, guys, while you're listening right now, go write a 5-star review where you can. Go to Apple, write a review. If you go to Spotify, you can write a comment on each episode. I try to read what I can at the end of every episode because I like to show love back to you guys because you're doing a whole lot to help grow the show. In saying that, we're going to play Pulp on the way out. I appreciate you guys so much. And you know what it is. Go outside, touch grass, and get your tail out the hole. No Diddy.
Subconscious looming over my thoughts, consuming, laying with death like I'm spooning. Everything I'm chasing, eluding me. This prison awaits. I can't find escape, 'cause I wanna taste the change. 'Cause I'm tired of being left in the rain. 'Cause I feel it's only me with this pain. Is the juice worth the squeeze? So am I left with the bone? Worth the squeeze, or am I left with the bone? Yeah, don't wanna know what the definition of a sorry is. Everything I'm chasing out of reach like Shatari ships. I feel when people say they feel me, they just say they do. Tentacles of praise turning into calamari soup. A little stretch every song I bleed. Just a little recognition is all I need. And God, I'm feeling growth, but every time I look inside, I'm looking at the branches of a bonsai tree. And I don't know what I'ma leave when I leave here, 'cause the mic's just become a pair of sheep shears. And I'm fighting for change, but legacy's important too. Scrambling for more days, more leap years. Feeling like a mega block around some Lego. In a chamber of my own thoughts, my own echoes. Lows never seem to hit the falsetto. Is it wrong for me to judge myself on what I've done? Know where I'm going. Squeeze, so am I left with the bone? Oh, I wanna know, is the juice worth the squeeze, or am I left with the On top of the tower where there is no ceiling, that's where the showers will pour on your feelings. Oh, rain is a part of the healing, ayy. Leave you with nothing concealing, ayy. Most of us run from affliction, to some of us it's an addiction. The way that the rays from the sun keep coming up missing.